All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Ali. I'm a grateful alcoholic. I'm so glad to be with you guys here today. Thank you so much for the kind invitation, for the generous invitation. My sponsor is Butch M from Canada as well. I was separated from alcohol on January the 4th, 2012. And I've been right in the middle of the circle and triangle, doing the best that I can to this day. I want to share with you that my sobriety date is actually September of 2016. See, what happened was that in around early September 2016, my wife had some minor surgery and she went into a doctor. They gave her some painkillers she prescribed, and I found myself on a Tuesday night taking a couple of them. And the next day I renewed my dry date. The reason I tell you this is because twofold. One is that to show how cunning, baffling, and powerful this disease is, that although perhaps, I don't know, maybe God doesn't make too hard terms for a broken soul like me. And, I was in the work enough that, I was given a slap on the wrist. I didn't go drinking. But what happened at that time was I was attached. I was attached to speaking engagements and number of sponsees and what they're doing in their lives and finances and this and that and image this disease knows my secrets. That's what I found. All the little secrets I was sweeping under the carpet and not sharing with you guys because somehow there was some kind of image I had to uphold, and this disease got me with that. And I'm so grateful for good sponsorship and an ounce of humility and a loving God, that I stayed with you guys. And I got to tell you, since then, from that day to this, I personally have a much deeper and humbler walk with God. And that's a beautiful thing for someone like me. That's a beautiful thing. As I said, I want to thank Judith R., my friend Judith, for the introduction, and Carl and Lindsay and the committee for the gracious invitation, for this beautiful thing that you guys do. You allow us to continue in these uncertain times, difficult times. You allow us to continue to gather in the fellowship of the Spirit. Now, if you're newly back, I want to tell you that one of the things that kept me coming back to the rooms was the spirit of your fellowship, of the spirit of our fellowship, the camaraderie, the joyousness, the happiness, the laughter, However, I got to tell you that is not what's kept me here. What's kept me here is much deeper. What keeps me here, I believe what keeps us here is the fellowship of the Spirit of a loving God that we get to tap into, loving power of goodness that we get to tap into, and the backbone of this fellowship is the old time, the long timer. I love the old timers. See, I wasn't one of those souls that got this program right away. I was in that for about 7 years, dying out there, absolutely dying out there. And it was you, the old timer, that I saw at the front door with shaking hands and a smile on your face, and with your generous gentleness, and it was you that shined a ray of hope for me in some of the darkest times of my life, that maybe it's possible for me too. So I want to always give thanks to the old timers. Not too long ago, I was dying. I was broken every way you could imagine. I was financially, spiritually, physically broken. I think that's the best word that describes how I was, But I'm no longer that today, because the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 steps there in it, the 12 traditions, and you beautiful people, the fellowship. I wish I could show you, I wish I could open up my heart and show you the serenity and peace and love and joy that I feel on most days, But unfortunately, I'm limited by this finite brain and my language. For the next 30 or 40 minutes, I'm going to make some mouth noises that are supposed to describe this beautiful program and this power, and it won't do it justice. It really won't do it justice, I want to tell you that I am nervous. I always get nervous before these things. And I want to share with you, before the Spirit continues to take me where the Spirit's going to take me, that I am not an expert. I'm not here to represent Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not here to teach anybody anything. I'm here to share with you my brokenness. I'm here to share with you the cracks in the armor, the wounds through which God shines through. I believe that's what makes me useful to you and you useful to me. It's that generosity in the rooms that we get to share from our brokenness and show each other, that remind each other of this power of loving God, what He does to us, So I'm not an expert. I am sober today because of a loving God, because of a forgiving God. And if the word God arises an antipathy in you, a distaste, the big book talks about, I want to share with you that I also felt that way, I didn't come in these rooms believing. I was born in a country that religious government took over, a few decades ago. I was 44, so maybe close to 50 years ago, they took over, and they came and they promised the world. And they started killing in the name of God, and raping in the name of God, hang and torture some of my extended family members in the name of God. So that's the kind of God I brought for you to deal with in these rooms, And the cool, beautiful old timer, man, they wouldn't miss a beat, cool as a cucumber. As I was arguing with them, debating with them about their steps and God, hey, Ali, take it easy, have a seat, just come up with your own conception. So I beg of you, if the word God bothers you, I'm probably going to use it a lot. Please come up with your own conception. Whether it's the soul of a loved one that's passed on, or the energy of the universe, or just a path of goodness, or the consciousness of this beautiful group, which is a power greater than I could ever be. Just come up with your own conception. I was born in a home and a family that lived at extremes. One extreme was love and generosity and family parties, huge extended family we had, and joy, laughter. And the other extreme was chaos and hitting and violence and bleeding and terror, fear, my father's addiction. I didn't know which family I'm going to wake up to. I didn't know which father I'm going to wake up to. As far back as I can remember, I used things outside of me to make me feel okay inside. I didn't know this. I couldn't unpack it this way at that time. This is language and descriptions that I learned and experienced from you. What I learned from you is that what I was trying to fill was a God-sized hole, insatiable, ever since I was a kid, with love of parents, extended family members, accolades in school, approval of kids on the street, job, relationships, money, cars. But the alcoholic that I am, none of those things ever filled that void. They were like shiny new toys I like to play with, including your approval. Shiny new toys I like to play with for a period of time, short period of time. And then I was left empty. I was left fearful, what you think about me. I was left chasing the next thing, whatever it was. I had no idea. Just never could fit in my own skin, In 1986, Iran and Iraq were fighting and they started to bomb each other's capital cities. We lived in Tehran, the capital city of Iran. The first few bombings that they dropped was within a few kilometers of our house. And I don't know if anyone's experienced bombings before, but when a bomb drops within a few kilometers, that means you feel it. You feel the vibrations, and the house shakes, and the windows break. Myself and my sister, we were too young and naive to understand the gravity of the situation. My mother got extremely sick from fear. She ended up in a mental hospital for a month. My dad just picked us up and brought us to Canada. But for the grace of a loving God, within 2-3 months of deciding, we came here. He locked up the house and gathered all the money that he could. We were doing all right financially, We landed in this beautiful country. In my experience as a Canadian, I met you, beautiful, open-minded, kind, loving people. I started to experience things like freedom of religion and freedom of speech and freedom of opportunity. I was young. I was 10 years old, but I could still understand what those things are. See, what I've noticed is, just a side note, kids overseas, they grow up a lot faster than kids in North America because they have to go through a lot more, So I could understand these things, how valuable they were when I came. And I would like to tell you that all those beautiful things in my life was okay, and I was roses, but that wasn't the case. Because what happened was my father's addiction followed us here. The hitting and fear and chaos followed us here. And I think even more important, more relevant to who I am, the isms of alcoholism followed me here. And please understand that I am not an alcoholic until I take that drink. However, the isms of alcoholism followed me here pre-drink, and this sick, diseased brain continued to at the age of 10, continue to cherry pick evidence in my life, why I'm not enough, why I'll never be enough, why I'm not okay, why I'm less than you. Kids on the street make fun of you, they beat you up, you're not enough. You don't speak a word of English, you're not enough. Your dad beats you, he's an addict, you're not enough. I'm not saying any of those things as a reason or excuse for my alcoholism. I used to blame him and the government and her and the schooling and you. See, this disease is so cunning and baffling and powerful. It does not want me to look at me. I have to look outside. This disease wants me to look outside while I'm dying on the inside. See, what happened with me was that I started to, when I woke up in the program a little while later, I started to look at my own younger sister. who's about 5 years younger than me. And she had gone through the same trauma in life, basically, as me. And she's not an alcoholic. She's not an addict. She's tried all kinds of drugs and alcohol, experimented with. And obviously, like any human being, any child that goes through trauma is going to be wounded and broken to some degree. I don't know a single human being personally that is not to some degree. But see, the difference between me and my sister is that a good therapist, a few motivational speakers and books and tapes and weekends, she's an amazing human being. I wish I could be like her. You know, I don't have to tell you how many psychiatrists and therapists I've been to. You know, and then I would meet some of you beautiful people. Again, with the generosity of the honest sharing in these rooms. You would sit me aside and you would say, that's interesting, Ali, how all those things happened to you as a kid. But check this out. I lived the Leave It to Beaver life. I had a beautiful family and nobody hit anybody and nobody drank, rich parents and private schools and happiness. Yet, I'm an alcoholic. Yet, I still felt like I never fit. I still wanted to crawl out of my own skin. And what you shared with me is that alcohol treated that. Oh, internal. I was looking on the outside. It's internal. You know, internal. I started to drink at the age of 16. I'm not going to give you a big drunkalog. I was taught to share in a general way. I started to drink at the age of 16, a little bit late by some of the stories I hear. But right then and there, again, in hindsight, only when I look back in hindsight, I could see it. I woke up spiritually. I didn't know everybody didn't feel that way. I started to be able to breathe and fit in my own skin. And when I began drinking, you know, as a teenager, you sort of get lost in the chaos of teenage drinking. So you don't really stand out as a potential alcoholic necessarily, you know. So I started to drink because, you know, I did well in school or a tournament in sports or got an A in a course. After a while, I'm drinking because, you know, I lost the tournament or she dumped me or I failed the course. After a while, I'm drinking because it's Tuesday morning and I woke up. I'm drinking because it's snowing outside. I'm drinking because you looked at me wrong. I told you that earlier. I'm an alcoholic. No excuses ever trivial enough for me not to kill myself with. Fear is never sufficient enough for me to stay sober. You know, I suffer from a terrifying illness, and a part of this disease just boggles my mind and absolutely frightens me. You taught me about something called the phenomena of craving. It's an allergy in which the way I react to alcohol is different than other people. 90%, something like that, of the population reacts differently than I do. Any other allergy that I know about, like people that have peanut or shellfish allergies, from what I understand, what happens is that they ingest the product, their throat swells up, and their brain and body, they cooperate together to help the guy. They say, hey, don't do that. Don't drink that. Don't eat that no more. Go to the hospital. Not for me. When I drink, it fills that God-sized hole to such a degree that my brain and body conspire to kill me. The craving of alcohol does not start for me before the drink. It starts when I take a drink. There's a fire inside of me that I take a drink, then the drink takes a drink, then the drink takes me, and I'm gone. And I keep going, go, until some kind of death or destruction happens in my life. And I always look for the losing or the death of the material stuff. That's how conceited and self-centered and shallow I am. I always look for that kind of death. But what I don't see is that love is dying. Is that opportunity is dead. My soul is dark. My mom's heart's broken and dying. I don't see none of that stuff. Couple that physical allergy with a mental twist so powerful and cunning and baffling that I can't trust the one organ in my body that's supposed to help me stay safe. Can't trust my brain. I have a virus in it. It will always tell me that I have another drink in me. Step one I never understood step one to be, I can't drink. What step one says that Ali will drink. I'm guaranteed to drink. I'm an alcoholic. On my own power, that's what I do. Couple that physical allergy with a mental twist that, as I said, that took me to many suicide attempts. Many suicide attempts. It may not have happened for you yet, you know. That's another gift I got from old timers. Yet you're eligible too. Keep going, Ali. You're eligible too. One of these suicide attempts, my brain is foggy. I think he's trying to protect me. I don't know which order they were. There were many. One of them, I had slashed my wrist. The one I always remember the most clearly because my mom found me. I slashed my wrist, a bottle of Percocets, my dad's Percocets. He was always on and off of opioids and opiates. And a bottle of vodka, waiting there to die. We ended up in the emergency room and in the hospital in Southeast Toronto where we lived. And they gave me some charcoal drink to drink. And then the next morning, I'm in the psych ward of the same hospital. My mom and myself were there, and the psychiatrist is there, and my mom's crying, and I'm crying. And I promised her. I told her yet again, I promise you I'll never do this to you again. And I meant it. With every fiber of my being, I meant it. If we would have hooked up a polygraph test to me, I would have passed it. You know? I think it was a week or 2 days later, for whatever excuse it was, ding, 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 a drink would fix that. Hey, that was just a phase you were going through. You don't have the right girlfriend. That was the problem you had. Cunning, baffling, and powerful. Eh? Meanwhile, I'm drowning. I'm dying. My skin is in this spiritual malady that you taught me about. Bitter morass of self-pity, Bill Wilson says. Quicksand all around me. My skin hurts, literally and figuratively. I'm confused by everything you do in your life. From the jobs to the promotions to the houses to the cars to the girlfriends to the wives to the husband. Don't know how you do it, man. It's like Japanese to me, life. I didn't know laughter. I hadn't laughed. I hadn't had a laugh, belly laugh for years before Alcoholics Anonymous. I was dying inside, man. You know? And God in his infinite mercy he sent me so many angels, and, you know, I haven't always been awake to them, but one of the first ones that I was in 2006. The gentleman 12-stepped me, and he introduced me to you guys. And I fell in love with you guys. I found love with, as I said, the camaraderie and the joyousness, the spirit of your fellowship. I fell in love with that. I fell in love with the fact that I found a group of people that are like me. I thought it's one thing if you think you're crazy, but you have no category for it and you feel alone in that insanity. It's another thing when you find your people and they're like you and some of them have a solution, you know? And I was on a pink cloud for about a few months. And that's the grace of God. Pink cloud is a grace of God, man. When somebody would want to drink and kill themselves, all of a sudden they don't and they're happy, it's a grace of God. And I guess after 4 or 5 months of just coming to meetings and talking to you guys, my brain woke up to the tragedy of my life and it told me a drink would fix that. And I was in and out for years in Alcoholics Anonymous, you know? And I was doing things that I thought I heard. Again, what I thought I heard and what I heard may be a universe apart. So I'm just going to tell you what I thought I heard. What I thought I heard was go to 90 meetings in 90 days, everything's going to be okay. Get a home group, get a service position and shake hands and make coffee and everything's going to be okay. Fellowship and volleyball games, everything's going to be okay. But that wasn't the case for me. I was in these rooms either angry at you or depressed at me. Why I can't get this thing. But today I understand why. Because I wanted something for nothing. I've always been about athletics, and I like to use analogies for me because they dumb it down for me, you know? What I wouldn't do if I wanted to get physical shape, this is what I would not do. I wouldn't go to a gym 90 times in 90 days and talk to people and shake hands and get inspired by the beautiful physiques I see and hear their stories and clean the machines and then go home. Imagine what would happen to me, right? In order for me to get in physical shape, I got to go to the gym, but I got to jump on the treadmill. I got to lift the weights. I got to do something, you know? And I missed the boat on that whole thing in the Alcoholics Anonymous. Please don't misunderstand. To this day, I have a home group, service position at that home group. I hit meetings. I do fellowship when I can, you know. I have a sponsor. But all those fingers point to something. They point to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous in that book, and which point to a power greater than me. Because I'm beyond human help. I'm beyond human help, you know. God put another angel in my path, and this angel, from one of the first people that I remember, opened the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with me, and I started to be able to breathe a little bit, you know, as we were going through the big book. I got to about 9 months of sobriety, 8 months, 9 months, I can't remember, and we got to the amends process, and all of a sudden, I had no idea. See, remember I told you my life is filled with mistakes. I fumble and I stumble through this path, I'm full of brokenness. So I'm sharing with you my brokenness. My ego was rebuilding at the same time. I had no idea. And they start to talk to me and tell me, hey, look at what you did. Look at what you did. Ain't you special? 9 months sober. You have a girlfriend and a job. Those people in the air are losers. Some of them complaining and, incredible how it talks to you, man. Incredible how it talked to me. So I didn't make one single amends. Ever so slowly, I stopped meeting that sponsor. Ever so slowly, I stopped going to meetings. It's just cunning. Slowly. Life was beautiful. Nothing wrong externally with life. I was having a beautiful time in life. And I felt like Fred in the big book, not a cloud in the horizon. And it told me, hey, why don't you have a couple of pints with the guys? Watch the fights at the bar. 1 pint, 3 years. 1 pint, 3 years. I was dying. Some of the most pain and depth and despair that I felt and experienced was in those 3 years. I'd like to share with you that from personal experience, it's a different kind of pain, different kind of confusion and bewilderment and frustration and embarrassment, all that shame. When you've had a taste of the solution and you think you know what it is and you think you know where it is, but your feet won't take you. Head full of AA, dying out there, And my last drunk wasn't as bad as the many, many tens before. I was in a recovery room that I was, renting, recovery room in a house. I had drank the night before and snuck back in because I don't want to be kicked out. And in the morning, I think I slept an hour, whatever happened. I woke up with such pain and despair, hopelessness. Yet I had a spiritual experience. I want to share with you that we can have spiritual experience in pain. In fact, some of my most profound spiritual experiences have been in pain, while in pain. My spiritual experience was that before that time, I always wanted to end my life and kill myself because I didn't know how to stop drinking and being like this. At that time, I got on my knees for the first time and I begged God, whatever you are, I just don't want to be like this anymore, From that prayer and that moment, I didn't want to die. I didn't want to drink. I just didn't want to be like that anymore. And this loving hand of God caressed me and brought me to these sacred rooms again, these sacred rooms. He put another teacher in my path. And this teacher opened the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with me. And we started to go through a line by line. All we did was follow the black on the white. If I could identify with something, I would. If it said to take an action, we would have moved forward until that action was taken. We went through the inventory process. And for the first time, I think in my life, I saw that every complaint that I have in my life about you and the outside world and the feeling better than and less than, jealousies and fear and resentments, they all have one common denominator. You're looking at them. It was me trying to run the show. It was me. It was as if like my entire life, I was in this pitch black room and I was trying to find my way around it. I keep on hitting things and fumbling and stumbling and falling down and breaking my ankle and pissed off all the time. It's as if like somebody went in the corner of the room and flicked on the light. All of a sudden I could see. It was as if like somebody went inside of me and flicked on the light. And I had a powerful God experience in my first round of step 6 and 7. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but it always materialized if we work for them. And my step 1 experience, that gift of desperation, that pain was so close to me that we went through the amends process, all the amends that I could, make the approaches and find in a short period of time. And with every single amends, I got to tell you, with every single amends, I was able to stand up a little bit straighter. I got a piece of my soul back. It was as if like I put my big boy pants on. I started to grow up a little bit, It's incredible how selfish I was in that I always felt less than, and I always try to feel better than and gain self-esteem, as they call it, by doing for me. By going to the gym and getting the car and the girlfriend and all for me, dressing up nicely, just so you guys will say I'm okay. So dependent on your approval. That's incredible. But in this program, where my old common sense becomes uncommon sense, what you taught me is that, Mally, the way you gain self-esteem is you start doing for others. You start making your amends. That's how you grow up. That's how you gain self-esteem. I love the promise. The first promise in step 10, we have entered the role of the Spirit. For me personally, what the first 9 steps, what I've been taught and experienced, and I revisit them every year, just the way I've been taught, right? They catapult me deeper into the realm of the spirit. And I began to practice a program in step 10 on a daily basis, and a little prayer here and there, and start to build a prayer life. And I start to sponsor people very early on in sobriety. I start to sponsor people at 3.5 months of sobriety. Please remember, this is my experience, right? Doesn't have to be yours. This is my experience, right? And I was scared. And I guess my elders that were around me, they knew me for 7 years. They watched me in and out. They knew this guy is really sick. He's sick the most. He's so selfish. You better start giving something away to somebody, right? So what they told me is that, it's time for you to pass it on. And I was scared. And I would sort of argue with them. Are you kidding me? 4 months ago, once in Swaziland was 4 months of sobriety, right? And I was reminded, very kindly yet sternly, how interesting that line of thinking is. Because I was told that if Dr. Bob or Bill Wilson thought the way I did, if there was some rule written in stone that everyone has to abide by, that you have to have 1 year before sponsoring people, they would be dead. There would be no Alcoholics Anonymous, and Ali, you'll be probably drunk or dead too. So it's none of your business to whom, how, and when you pass this message on. When you're at step 12, you pray and let God do what God does. So I prayed. Literally, my prayers in the mornings were, God, if you see fit, can you please put a sponsor in my path so I don't drink and die? Something like that. God in his infinite mercy, this loving God, had me chair meetings in a men's shelter where I would set up the meeting and I would read 3 pages from the big book, and these men would go around and share from, the pain that they were in, obviously. And I would share about the fact that just 3-4 months ago, I was drunk and today I'm not, or 3-4 months ago, I want to kill myself and today I don't, And these men start to trust me. They start to trust me because I would go back every week saying the same thing. And they would ask me things like, Ali, can you help us do whatever it is that you did? Can you help us get sober like this and feel the way you do? And what I would do is, I would say, yeah, of course I would. I would just, take you through the big book like I was taking. I am so sorry. I think David is unmuted and it's echoing in my ear. I apologize, man. Lindsay, if you could mute David. I'm so sorry. I'm nervous about the Zoom thing. Thank you so much. I'm nervous about the Zoom thing anyways because I don't hear people's voices, and then I apologize. So I don't know if any of those men are sober today. I don't know if any of those men are sober, but I'm sober. Because this program didn't start because Bill Wilson had an agenda to keep people sober. He tried that for the first 6 months. He failed. He stayed sober, but he failed. The program didn't start at that time. Program started when he was literally in pain and despair because he lost a business deal and he was going to drink in the Mayflower Hotel, walking back and forth in the lobby. He was going to drink. And then the Spirit had him look at the phone book, the directory, where he eventually met Dr. Bob. This program started because Bill Wilson needed to get sober himself. One alcoholic with another, language of love. And we're all feeling the ripple effects of it 85 years later, language of love. So I stayed sober. And I would not survive the trials and tribulations of life if it wasn't for sponsoring people, for giving this thing away. At about 2 years of sobriety, I also want to share with you that I would come into these rooms and I would lie to you. I would lie to you that the relationship with God is the most important relationship in my life. See, I didn't know the depths of my lie until it was pointed to me by a kind messenger with kindness, because what he told me was to consider was, if that is true, if the relationship with God is the most important relationship in your life, then why is it that you give God so little time during the day? Because if your other relationships in your life are important, just like your wife's, I said, yeah, my wife's relationship with my wife is important. And he asked me, he said, well, if you give your wife the same amount of time that you give God, Ali, she'll divorce you. Because I was still doing that 2 years sober, sponsoring a lot of men, what I was doing when I first came in. which is a little quick prayer in the morning and quick prayer at night. Please don't, if that what works for you, that's beautiful. I'm just sharing my experience and that I have been taught in my experience and my experience of my elders as I walk. This path is so broad and roomy, man. But as I take a 24 humbling hour step forward, it gets narrower and narrower. I can't get away with doing the things I was doing when I first came in. I don't walk a perfect walk at all. I make mistakes, but I can't get away with them. I got to address them immediately spiritually. And I cannot get away with not doing what the big book suggests, which is prayer and meditation. So since then to this, I have built a prayer life and a meditative life. I wake up early in the morning and I worship this power. Throughout the day, I'm always praying, asking to remove my selfishness, to show me what you would have me do. You would have me do, God. I do a quick little review at night most times anyways, you know? And once again, words are not sufficient to describe the love and joy and serenity and peace that I feel as a result of prayer and meditation as part of this program, you know? And I think more important, words will not describe sufficiently the feeling, the knowing that it's going to be okay in the depths of despair in sobriety, in the depths of fear and sadness, in the fetal position, crying because I can't handle certain curveballs that life threw me. The feeling, the knowing that everything is going to be okay, that's priceless. That's priceless, you know? That's priceless. And as I mentioned earlier, the last few years, short years in sobriety, it hasn't been roses, you know? We've had deaths in the family and cancers and financial failures. I've had 3 or 4 business failures of struggling throughout my sobriety financially. Just in the last year, God saw fit, I end up in a career I can support my family a little bit better, you know? My wife and I got separated, almost divorced. Depression here and there. Ever since I was a kid, I was a depressive, you know? Here and there, in the work. It visits me. It has visited me. Outside help, inside help. See, I'm sharing that stuff with you just to show you this. To show you, like I'm going to show something. To share with you this. To share with you that all those valleys in life have made me a better human being. They've been gifts from beyond. They made me more compassionate. They made me more loving, more understanding. They brought me back to the table with God on a deeper level, for a deeper level of surrender, you know? And I'm so grateful for Butch and all the other people that have been around me and my sponsors in the past, because no matter what kind of life problems or trauma I go to them with once in a while, you know, they kindly allow me to share. They share from their experience and apply spiritual principles to that problem. Then they point me to the big book, to some kind of prayer, to some kind of inventory, to some kind of assignment. They point me to God. I am beyond human help, and love is not enough. This is a powerful illness. My mom's wasn't enough. My mom's love wasn't enough, and your love is not enough. Even though I seek your love, you know, I love the fellowship. Just not enough for me to stay sober. Not enough, you know. The last few years, what I have done with a lot of mistakes is what Dr. Bob said and what you keep teaching me and telling me. Trust God, clean house, help others. No matter what's going on in life, trust God, clean house, and help others. And I've been stepping back and watching in awe of this power, watching what God has done in my life. That's why I want to shout it from the rooftops, because it blows my mind that me and my wife, she's sober a little bit longer than me, we've been kept sober through all these traumas in life, you know, and most times in the eye of the storm, with some semblance of serenity and peace and dignity, you know? That's incredible, man, when I think about it. I've been watching him give me external things, which don't even matter, but I've been watching him provide for me this abundance. You know, we have a car, we have a house, and I have a car, I have a career that I said, you know, without no experience in it. All of a sudden, God said, here you go, your turn now. I can help support my family. I don't look sick anymore. You know, I think I look good. Well, my wife does. That's the only thing that matters. Really. I'm only sharing those things because I know when I was new, I know there are some newer people on the call. When I was new, it was important for me to see some tangible stuff and hold on to them. It was important for me, you know? But money does not solve this problem. I know a lot of rich people throwing money at this thing, dying in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I know it. You know? This disease does not care about who I am, my education, my race, my sexual preference, my religious background. Don't matter. Equal opportunity death. Intelligence, in fact, that's the worst thing for me. Intelligence. Biggest obstacle. All the things I think I know. You know? The priceless stuff is that I get to sleep without sleeping pills. I wake up happy most of the time. I'm happy most of the time, you know? Priceless stuff is that God saw fit to put another broken but beautiful soul on the inside and outside. We've been married 7 years now, you know? Actually loves me for me. My last suicide attempt was 9 or 10 years ago, you know? I wanted to check out a life. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want this life, you know? I didn't want this life. And this loving power 6 years ago gave us a baby boy. And he said, here you go, you selfish prick. Take care of one of my kids. Stop being so selfish. His name is Darius. I always talk about him, and he's the best thing in my life. He's the best thing in my life. He's the manifestation of God for me. I watch him, and he's present to every moment. I learn from him, you know? See, unfortunately, the cunning, baffling disease that I suffer from, none of that priceless stuff even have sufficient power to keep me sober. Because I don't suffer from a drinking problem. I suffer from a drinking solution. I don't suffer from a drinking problem. I suffer from alcoholism. It's a spiritual malady. It's a soul sickness in which on my own power, I feel separate from you. On my own power, I'm always scared of what you think about me. I want to crawl on my skin. I'm full of fear. There's always somewhere I need to get to on my own power. The now is never enough. Always thinking about me on my own. On my power, I'm drinking. I'm dying. And that delusion that this alcoholism makes me fall asleep too, that I'm separate from you guys, that leads to the biggest delusion of all, that somehow I'm separate from this power. If I believe at that time, which I didn't most of the time, there's this power or some entity out there that I'm a universe apart from me, that's not the case. Every spiritual path that I follow along with the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, never instead of, along with the big book, and the big book tell me, deep down within every man, woman, and child is a fundamental idea of God. And God is closer to me than breath. And I'm aware and awake to that most of the time. Most of the time. You know? Most of the time. If you're newly back, or perhaps you've been, you know, with us a few 24 hours and you're in pain, and that happens. That's how cunning and baffling it is. It happens, you know? I hope this lands the right way. I pray that you have enough pain that leads to a surrender sufficient enough that you get a home group, get a sponsor, dive into these steps, or recommit to these steps, and experience this power once again. Experience the love of this power once again. You know, and you will find that not only in happy times, but in times of pain, because life will throw us curveballs, man. In times of pain, you will find that there's more light in you that you know what to do with. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. God bless you. Thank you again, Carl, for this opportunity. And I love you all. Thank you very much.